You found your way to the Winning Tactics podcast with host Adam Sinkus. Adam discusses winning tactics with small business owners and entrepreneurs, uncovering processes and introducing the tools and solutions for enhancing the bottom line. Thanks again for finding your way to the Winning Tactics podcast, and now your host, Adam Sinkus.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome to another wonderful episode of the Winning Tactics podcast. Excited for this one because this is a topic that I am hugely passionate about, and it is networking. So if you're catching this on LinkedIn, that is the networking platform. So kudos to you. We're also live on Facebook and Twitch TV as well, so check us out if you're on any of those platforms. I'm excited though. We got Mark Herschberg with us today. Mark is a career coach, the author of the Career Toolkit, and expert networker. Mark, welcome to the show. So glad to have you on.
Thank you for having me. Very glad to be here today.
So tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. My career kind of has legs in two different areas. So my primary career has been starting as a software developer during the dot-com era and then growing lots of different startup companies, some classic garage startups, some helping Fortune 500s who wanted to play startup. And just in my own career growing, I've been a CTO for many years and now do some consulting work at the executive level. I've had a parallel career in academia and with careers. So I helped start a class at Harvard Business School and then another class 20 years ago at MIT, referred to as MIT's Career Success Accelerator, where I've been teaching for the past 20 years. And what we've done is we've looked at some fundamental skills that corporations were telling us we needed in our students, and that other universities are saying they need in other students, and that I've seen people need throughout their careers and even their small businesses for small business owners. Fundamental skills that everyone tells us it's important, but no one teaches us, like networking. How many times have we heard networking is really important, but how many people have actually sat down and said, here's how to network properly? And so that's what I've been doing as a side career the past 20 years.
Fantastic. Well, welcome to the show. Excited for you to bring your knowledge of 20 years of experience to that. And you are spot on. I think it's really critical to point out that networking and some of those fundamental business skills that business owners need aren't necessarily taught in school. We can go through communications classes and give presentations, but at the end of the day, I don't have 30 minutes to tell you about what I do and get you interested in my product all the time. Sometimes I have, the proverbial elevator pitch, right? The 10 seconds. So excited to get into this. Let's start off talking a little bit about how networking has changed, because obviously we know that 2020 really changed the shape of what networking was, and possibly has probably shifted a little bit for where we're going to fall through post-COVID and post-pandemic times.
I want to rephrase that question slightly, because the fundamentals of what networking is about has not changed, other the mechanics certainly has. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Fundamentally, networking is about building relationships. That is universal, that has existed for thousands of years throughout human history, and I don't think that's going to be changing. Of course, how we meet people, how we interact with people, down to even shaking hands, well, that is very much changing. And so you're right that we're not going out to events, we're not meeting in person, we're not exchanging business cards. That's changed. But when we recognize that networking is relationship-based, we realize that introduction piece, the hi, nice to meet you, here's my card, let me get your card, that is 1% of networking. And it's an important first step, but it's a small piece of it. And so the key piece of networking about relationship building, we can continue to do that even if it's shifted a little to more online interactions.
I love that. One of the things I always focus on with my, especially like LinkedIn space, and I'm even doing this more on Facebook and Twitter a little bit, is reaching out to make that personal connection, taking it beyond the "Hi, how are you doing?" Phase. And so I love that you point that out. That fundamentally networking hasn't changed, just about what we're doing in that space or how we're going about it. So so what have you found is in those fundamental changes, what have you found is the biggest difference in your approach?
We have an opportunity. Everyone has looked at COVID as, it's a problem, and on a global scale, certainly this is a terrible pandemic. We wish it didn't happen. We're waiting to get out of it as quickly as possible. When people think about in terms of networking, what I hear over and over again is, well, we can't network, right? Networking is shut down because I'm not going out meeting new people. And it's true that your ability to meet new people has been curtailed when you go to online virtual events. Sitting in a Zoom room with a bunch of strangers, it's a little more awkward to try and meet people and build those connections. That is a limitation we face. However, there is a silver lining. Going back to networking is about relationships. The key to networking, it's not collecting those cards, it's fostering that relationship, and that comes from interaction, spending time with people. Now, we have generally limited ourselves to people we see. When I think back to how I networked in 2017, 2019, it was, hey, let's meet for coffee, let's catch up for a drink after work, and you meet someone face to face. We did not say, hey, how about we jump on a video call and spend an hour staring into our screens, right? Why do you want to do that? So we limited our network building, the time we spent building those relationships, to people we see locally. So I was building up relationships with people in New York, and the people in San Francisco, well, when I traveled there for work, I'd let them know, I'd catch up. But obviously, I was very New York centric. Now that we've moved into the virtual world, now that we can say, okay, let's jump on a video call, I'm no longer confined to the New York metro area. And I can catch up and build those relationships with people in London, people in Dallas. And so it's a good chance to foster those relationships with people on a global scale, because once this is over, we're all going to say, I don't want to spend any more time on the screen than I have to. I want to be outside. I want to see people in person. And we're less likely to want to spend time on the screen with our connections remote. So use this time we have now to foster those remote relationships and put the time into it you otherwise wouldn't have.
No, I love that. Because I've been a serial connector. I'll call it that, a serial connector for a long time, regardless of place. And it's always been more focused on the who for me. And so I think it's interesting that this has forced so many people into the global world, right? I was laughing the other day because I've gotten really comfortable with converting time zones very, very quickly because I've talked to people in California, I talked to people in New York, I talked to people in Australia, in the Philippines, and so I've gotten like really, really quick at being able to figure out how to convert those time zones so that we can make those one-on-one connections. And I love that you point out the Zoom thing, because Zoom fatigue is real. I've had some other guests on the show talk about Zoom fatigue, but the reality is you put more than about 5 people on a single Zoom call, and all of a sudden one person is talking and everybody else is sitting there doing 10 other things.
It's hard. You can, however, do community building even while online. So one group I'm part of, we normally do in-person events a couple times a year. We come from all over the country. Knowing that we can't do those, we actually created a Saturday night Zoom call, and we get a couple dozen people on the call each Saturday night. There's a few things we do in the big room, and yeah, it can be a little hard, but now that we've done it for so many weeks, we kind of know each other. But then we just break up into smaller rooms. And while if it's first just a stranger, that can be awkward, it was less so for us because we all had this larger community. We all knew we were a part of this. And over the weeks and months, we've gotten to know each other. And these are folks, I would see them maybe once a year in a room full of lots of other people. So I didn't really get to know them well. I've gotten to know them so much better setting up that Zoom call. So it can be done, but you have to be strategic. You can't just put 5 strangers with no connections into a room and hope they build those relationships.
Yeah, that really, I think is interesting, because we've had to shift tactics a little bit. I used to attend a networking event, whether it be BNI, Chamber of Commerce, or just a general broad networking event, or even maybe an industry networking event. And you have a room full of people, and you figure out who you want to talk to and who you shouldn't waste your time on. And so now with the online space, I think part of that is a lot easier to figure out who you should and shouldn't talk to. But how do you approach building your networks?
When I meet people, I think of a few things. First, everyone is someone valuable in my network, right? Everyone is valuable in some way. Don't always know how, but I love meeting people and love getting to know them. So when I go and meet people, the first thing I do is I think, how can I help this person? And this is a great way of focus on relationships. If you go into networking thinking, what can I get? What can I take? How can you help me today? That's not a great feeling. No one wants to feel used. No one wants to feel like, you just want me because I can open this door. You really do want to focus on that relationship, and then things will come out of it. So I think of networking as karmic. And when you go in with that mentality of, how can I help you? And you can do so. It doesn't have to be quite so literal. It's just, I want to get to know you. I want to understand you better. Tell me about yourself. What's of interest to you? What are the challenges you face? And just as I get to know you, things might start to occur to me how I can help you.
I love that. I think everybody, for the most part, everybody has a value in your network, whether you can directly help them or whether they can directly help you. Or my favorite thing to do is connecting people with people that are far better qualified for different things than I am. So, I think it's an interesting perspective to go into it with the right mindset. And I love that. How can I help you mindset, because it really frames it as a place where you're genuinely trying to understand people.
And you hit on one of the kind of secrets of networking, almost a power networking tip, which is connecting people. Now, we can all do things from helping our friends move their couch to, opening a door for someone, but connecting people is probably the best ROI in terms of what you can offer to your network. So let's think of kind of the classic case of someone's trying to hire and someone's looking for a job, and you put the two of them together. Now, this takes literally seconds, right? You do that introductory email, you connect the two of them. What happens? The person looking for a job, if he winds up with a job, he thinks, this is so great. You got me a job, right? How valuable is that to me? From the hiring manager's perspective, she thinks, you got me an employee. I would have been searching high and low. You got me a great employee. Both of them love what you did. Both received a lot of value. And all you had to do is make that connection, which took literally seconds. So really think about how you can connect and help people. Because what you bring to your network, it is not simply what you yourself can do. It is your entire network is brought to everyone else in your network.
I love that. And the other thing that's interesting, right? And this is, I guess, when you start talking about ROI of connecting people, right? In that scenario you just laid out, now I've created 2 raving fans within a company. So Absolutely. The next time I'm looking for an opportunity, I have 2 people that already have confidence in me in that company.
Absolutely. Yes. Great way to think of that.
So I want to talk about the strategic side of networking, right? Because yes, it is important to connect with lots of different people, and everybody does bring value, but there are obviously people that are high value to you and people that aren't necessarily going to be as high value to you. So how do you approach finding those people that are going to be a little more direct on that ROI, right? The people that maybe potentially you can do work with, or people that can introduce you to the people that are going to that you are going to potentially do work in?
Here, it's honestly not so easy to tell. And I want to dive into why that is. Certainly, we can think about, oh, this is a person who's a gatekeeper for access to something, who maybe is an executive who has budget to buy the service or product I want. Okay, that's pretty direct. And certainly we can find those people. We can find ways to bump into them, right? And one way you can do that is to figure out, where are they spending their time, right? On social media, what are they posting about? What events they go to? Who are they following, right? And that's a way to increase your chances of running into them. And obviously there's a line between stalking the person and just, okay, I know they're going to be at this event, so I'm going to buy a ticket too and hope to run into them. Use balance. But really, when we think about the long-term view, it's not about who can necessarily open the door to that next sale or the next partnership I need. Long-term, you never know. And so I give an example in my book about the value of diversity in networking. I work in technology. I know a lot of engineers, from between my schooling at MIT to having worked in the industry for decades, plenty of engineers. Probably meeting one more engineer is unlikely to, oh, I've never met anyone like you, or you can open the door to all these other engineers I never would have had access to, right? That's pretty minimal. On the other hand, I met two different people who are both ministers over the last few years, and they've both become friends of mine. Turns out MIT, we don't produce a lot of ministers. In the tech startups I work at, we don't hire a lot of ministers. I don't run into a lot of clergy in my day job, right? And so these two people, I don't have a need necessarily for clergy very often, but if I do, instead of saying, oh my God, where am I going to find a clergy who has this experience, this background? Well, I know two people who probably know clergy just like that. And they probably didn't meet a lot of engineers in their schooling, but when they do have an engineering issue, when they do need to connect someone in their community to someone with my background, well, they know me and all these thousands of engineers I know. So in fact, we're incredibly valuable, maybe not on a day-to-day basis, but we can be valuable for having the right resources at the right time. And so I think of people not just for, okay, this is what they directly offer. It goes back to their entire network, and your entire network is part of the value proposition. So yes, we can target certain people to say, right, they are in the right company, have the right role, but also think about really building in that diversity, because over the long run, all these people with different backgrounds are going to provide a lot of value to you.
I love that. And it is a challenging space, because I think a lot of people get stuck on that. Well, I got to have all these people that provide value, and I got to have all this, and they have to directly give me an ROI. But you're right. The connections, sometimes they're worth their weight in gold, and you don't always know what those connections are going to be. So I want to shift gears a little bit, and this jumps into your tech background a little bit, I guess. And I want to know, how are you, aside from Zoom, how are you building your network now?
Certainly it is seeing people online virtually. And keep in mind, we all used to spend time commuting in the morning. Right, you're saving probably an hour a day in your commutes. That makes it easy to do a morning coffee with someone, right? And hey, let's spend 15, 20, 30 minutes just catching up. But it's also reaching out to people, right? And so I reach out to people on social media. I reach out to people on email. And it's saying, it's been a while. I'm certainly not running into people at events the way I used to. And so I'm proactively reaching out and saying, hey, how are you doing? And this time more than ever, it's very easy to say, hey, I know we're going through something stressful, maybe just in general with society, maybe family issues, right? People, are you getting COVID? Is everyone staying healthy? Could be your business. We all know every business has been affected in some way, many negatively. And so these are good reasons to reach out and say, just wanted to check in. It's 2021, or we're coming up on a year of COVID. How are you doing? And it's that outreach. It's not reaching out to say, I need, it's reaching out to say, I am offering, I am giving, even if it's just concern, even if it's saying, hey, I miss you in some ways. It doesn't have to be quite that affectionate, but reaching out like, how are you doing? And that's going to help keep these relationships alive and growing.
I like that. Reaching out is so critical. I find myself going through. I communicate a lot on LinkedIn personally, and I find myself going back through my connection list and just who haven't I talked to in say 5 or 6 months, and just pop them a quick message. You mentioned social media as being a great way to reach out to people. What channels are you using to reach out?
I use LinkedIn and Facebook, and both those tools have some great built-in stimulus. So on Facebook, I get birthday reminders. I never go more than a year without at least reaching out to someone to say, happy birthday, how are you doing? Right? And so it's a good kind of sync. LinkedIn also has some birthday reminders. I think people use it less, but LinkedIn also gives updates. Someone gets promoted, someone starts a new job, someone puts something on their LinkedIn profile, boom, it comes into your feed. Great reason to reach out. Congrats on that new job. Hey, how are you doing? Oh, I see you just started this new project or volunteer work. Good reason to reach out and again, create that connection and communication channel.
I like those. Those are fantastic tips. I would say that, in my opinion, the power move, and this is from talking to some other LinkedIn experts as well, the power move in that space is to make sure that you don't just use the form fill message that's on there. Yeah. Personalize it a little bit. I know one guy, he always sends gifts out in those messages, and that's always a fun way to approach it as well. So fantastic. Absolutely love that. Let's talk about just some quick tips on some quick hit items that business owners that are busy can take to start really getting engaged in building a network.
Don't think of it as just you needing the network. We, as small business owners, we think it's on us, right? It's on us to make payroll. It's on us to really lead the drive to new customers. Everything is on us. Now, the responsibility always stays with us, but we can delegate, right? We can delegate authority, even if not responsibility. So yes, build your networks, but encourage and foster networking skills among your staff, because what's better than one person building a diverse network is your team of 6, your team of 30, who all build this great network because you're all obviously connected to each other, can all help each other. And your accountants can help your salespeople, and your salespeople can help your product people. So increase your network overall by helping the people on your team, in your company, increase their networks.
I like that. And this may sound corny, but I have actually attended internal networking events at larger companies, where they bring in just people, anybody that's interested. So you get this slew of people from across, a bunch of different departments. And it sounds really corny, but it is a fantastic way to practice your networking skills in a very low pressure situation.
It's also, for anyone at a larger company, internal networking is so important. Now, I've been at some startups of 40 people where someone sitting in this cubicle doesn't really know what that person 12 feet over there does. They might know that person's name, and I think they're in the finance department. I'm not really sure. I don't know what they do. And it drives me nuts. They're 12 feet away. How do you not talk to them? Certainly in bigger companies where you have hundreds, if not thousands of people, okay, you're not going to know everyone, but it's so helpful to build up that internal network. And this is helpful first for you, that whatever department you're in, understanding what people in other departments do gives you a better understanding of the business overall. It helps you see opportunities and risks better than someone with blinders on just in his or her own department. It's also helpful as you want to get promoted. If you have a political challenge, having a diverse network within the company, people who know you, who understand your skills, who respect you, that's going to support you as you get promoted, as you spearhead projects, or if you do have a political situation, you're going to have more people who can be on your side. So build that internal network, not just within your team, within your whole organization. And if you're a small business owner and you have more than half a dozen people, make sure they spend time together, not just at the holiday party, but actually getting to know each other and fostering those relationships, because it's going to make everything easier.
I like that. I like that a lot. And for sure, it definitely does help bring your team together when they can network and learn about each other. Let's talk a little bit about how business owners can push out into the community and network, right? Because obviously there's groups like BNI and like the Chamber of Commerce that are pretty typical places where business owners tend to engage in networking. But what other places, what other things exist out there from your experience?
One of the secrets of networking is if you host an event. So I'll give you a story. I had joined some small private social networking thing years ago. Wasn't that excited about it. I just kind of wanted to check it out. And I saw people posting that people were, it was a very international community. There's some people who are going to be in town. I thought, all right, let me do one event. Oh, people are going to be in town. Okay, I'll organize. Like, we're all going to meet for cocktails at this, at some bar next Saturday. Well, it turned out it was a really popular event because the half dozen people I thought became a dozen people, became 20, became 50, became 100, capped out around 250. I actually started getting worried. Where do you put 250 people in New York City, right? Our bars are not that big. Now, fortunately, some enterprising club owners saw this and said, I know you don't have a location. Why don't we use my club? And hey, I'll open it up an hour early. That's just for this group. Now, he was very smart. He just brought 250 people to his club. Normally, you have to pay a promoter for that, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't worried about capitalizing. Oh, pay me for this. I'll just go, thank God there's a place I can put people. And then we did the event. Well, what happened? Everyone looked at me and said, that's the guy. That's the guy who just got 250 people in a private club in New York City. Right? I kind of stumbled into this in this particular case. I'm normally a little more directed in planning, but everyone wanted to meet me. I was at the center of this. So if you can put on events, if you can do things that give value to other people, you can build up these relationships. A very common tactic we see is someone who might be, say, an accountant, and they put on that free monthly business lunch, right? Drop your card in, you get selected for the lunch. They've got a free, it's like a prefix lunch. They work out with the restaurant, so it doesn't cost them too much. They say, look, I'm just going to give you tips. I'm not here to sell you. I am here to say, here's how accounting has changed. Here's the changes in tax laws for 2021, or here are good things for small business owners, giving it to you. And then you say, hey, thanks, that was real useful. Let me get your card. Let's keep in touch. And down the road, that might lead to opportunities. So think about putting on events, whether it is, how can I provide something free to the community? How can I just get people together and people just know me as the organizer? Putting on small panels or talks. They don't have to be through the Chamber of Commerce. Great if you can do that. Even just doing it on your own, even running a meetup group. Great way to be known in your community and build those relationships.
Events are so awesome. It is a fantastic way to do it. Pre-COVID, I started LinkedIn Local Fort Myers, and just the outpouring and the community that we built within the first few months of that group was absolutely amazing to me. But one of the things that I think is important to call out in setting up events don't have to be this like formal, like call it business networking. I attended one event, I want to say it was January of last year. It was they had cornhole and grill out, and it was just very relaxing. We're going to do tours of our facility. It was a shop that does embroidery and screen printing, and teach about the screen printing process, but it's more just a chance to hang out, and we're going to do a cornhole tournament at some point during the evening. And it was like super, super relaxed, super, super chill. But there's about 50 people there that showed up, and, that was potential for 50 new connections, but it wasn't like businessy. I showed up in flip flops and cargo shorts and a t-shirt and my baseball hat, and everybody else was that way. And it was just a nice relaxed evening, but that can be a meetup as well. So I think it's important to call that out, that not everything has to be super, super formal.
Great insight. Keith Ferrazzi, who's a master networker, he talked about doing dinner parties. And now when we think about dinner parties, we think about you take out your best china, you have a fancy dinner. And he said, look, do that if that's what you want to do. And those can be great, but don't feel you have to do it that way. You can do buffet style. You can do paper plates. You can do backyard picnic, right? So it doesn't have to be white tablecloth. It could be paper plates. And take that mentality and do it in your business world, right? As you suggested, it doesn't have to be, here's the formal event. It's a sit-down dinner and we got a dais and a panel. It could be cornhole and barbecue, right? Do that paper plate version of your event. So do whatever is appropriate for the nature of the event, for the cost, for the size, for just the type of feel that you want. Because again, it's about relationships. It's not about the fancy dinner. It's not about the formal event. It's about getting people together to build those relationships.
I like it. I like it. What do you have any other tips that our small business owners can take away that are easy implementing networking solutions?
I would say a good thing for when we're back out in the world, always carry business cards on you. And when you carry business cards, everyone makes a mistake of, oh, I got a few in my wallet. So here's what you do. Put them in your wallet, put them in your jacket pocket, put them in your coats, put them in your laptop bag, put them in your suitcase. Wherever I am, as soon as I run out in my wallet, I know I have others elsewhere on my person, more at the hotel room. If I'm at an event, I run out that day. I keep them by the door. So whenever I come back home, whatever I've used, I replenish. You'll always have business cards on you, and think about handing them out once a day. I know some people, if it's electronic, that's what we're moving to. I like business cards. I like the personableness of it. I like that it can be used in the conversation to end the conversation. And I like the serendipity that your card is sitting on their desk. And even if they throw it out a week later, well, when they picked up to throw it out, they at least saw your card one more time a week later. Although I've had people who years later find my card and say, oh, you know what, Mark, it's been too long. Cleaning out my drawer, found your card. Hey, how are you doing? So stock yourself with cards and try to hand out a card a day.
I like that. To bridge the digital gap, what I've done with my business cards, which has worked out incredibly well, is I put a QR code on the back of it that links to a V card so that it automatically can push it straight into their address book on their phone. So all they got to do is snap a picture and it'll push it in. It's just a quick way for you to get into their digital phone book so that if they do misplace your card, they still have you. So
yes, great tip.
So, well, I appreciate it. Everything you've given us is absolute gold in networking. I love it. I always like to leave our listeners with a final thought of something that they can take away from today's conversation and go apply in their business. So I leave the floor to you. What are your final thoughts on today?
Networking is this tool that we all are told is incredibly powerful, but it's not taught to us. We know it's powerful, and it's the type of thing that's very easy to just say, I know I should do it. I know I should meet more people, or I know I should really foster these relationships, but it's a long day. I'm stressed. I'm trying to close a client account, and it's easy to push that back. Now, we've learned with things like exercise, right? Some of us are great at going to the gym, and some, you really got to kind of force yourself. You got to get into that habit. And once you're in the habit, you're like, okay, right, it's leg day, or right, this is a day I'm on on this machine for 30 minutes. Do that with networking. If it's not natural, do it with networking, build this habit. That's why I say I have this mentality, one card a day. Now, it doesn't literally mean I'm running around saying it's almost midnight, I got to hand out a card. But when you build these habits of carrying your card, habits of handing them out, habits of reaching out to people to wish them happy birthday, habits of checking LinkedIn once a week to see who got promoted, who got a new job. It's a habit. It will take time to build. But once you build it, it becomes easier. Just like after you've gone to the gym for 6 months, you don't have to drag yourself out. You go, yeah, okay, it's gym day. So work on building that habit. Even if it's a little hard at first, you can do it, and it gets easier with time.
Fantastic. Absolutely love that. Great final thoughts. Where can people find you?
You can find me at thecareertoolkitbook.com. That's my website. There you can find out more about the book I've written, The Career Toolkit, Essential Skills for Success That No One Taught You. You can also download the free app that contains a lot of the tips that we talked about today and in the book. So that's great for a daily reminder of, oh, right, I should be handing out a business card today, or I should think about reaching out to someone to have coffee with them. It's also really good if you're going to a network event, going into negotiation, going into some activity. You can open the app and do a quick refresher by looking through all the tips in that category. There's also a bunch of free downloads to help you, whether you're an employee or a business owner, how you can develop these skills across your organization. And then, of course, you can get in touch with me. You can also find out more information about the book, including where to buy it.
Fantastic. And we'll also make sure we get your LinkedIn profile linked in the show notes as well, so people can find you there. Really appreciate your time. You gave us some absolute gold in networking. I love it. I think it's so important that we're out there networking. Despite not being able to go to events, there are ways to get through. So I really appreciate your time. Before we sign off today, I do need to thank our affiliate partner, Cowork Hub Virtual, giving consultants, coaches, freelancers, and solopreneurs a sense of place in a remote work world. This is an absolutely fantastic tool. It gives you Zoom-like functionality from the perspective of video conferencing. You can host up to 10 people in your office. There's conference rooms available that you can host up to 30 people, so you can run master classes in it. Plus, you get a wonderful virtual receptionist to greet all your guests. It is a fully customizable platform too. Super cool. You can make your office feel like an industrial space or your cabin in the woods if you really want to. So check it out, coworkhubvirtual.com. There's a walkthrough on the site that shows you exactly what the platform is all about and how it works. And if you're interested, fill out the Connect with Us form on the site, and we will make sure that they get back to you so that you can get your office set up to better effectively network in 2021. So I appreciate it. As always, we appreciate you stopping by the Winning Tactics podcast. We are live every Tuesday, except next Tuesday, because I decided I needed a ski vacation. But we will have an episode being posted next Thursday on our YouTube and all the major podcast platforms. Also, you can look for this episode if you want to catch the replay on YouTube and all the major podcast platforms. Just search The Winning Tactics. Thank you so much, Mark. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your week.
Well, that wraps up yet another episode of the Winning Tactics podcast. You can find Adam on both the LinkedIn and Facebook platforms. And to support the show and ensure the success of the podcast, would you kindly consider visiting Patreon.com/Adam Sinkus? We greatly appreciate it. And until next time, from the Winning Tactics podcast, remember, culture is how your team behaves when no one is looking. Take good care, and thanks for listening.